This week's Four Questions Journalist Spotlight is brought to you by Leff's Atlanta Media, Atlanta's best journalist database. Subscribe at leffsatlantamedia.com.
Welcome to the next edition of our Four Questions Journalist Spotlight. We are talking today with Mark Arum, host of the, what's the word? I don't know. Same name, Mark Arum Show. What's that phrase? Epinospiciously named. I don't know. There's some phrase like when your name is the name of the show.
I know what you're saying. I can't remember the phrase.
I'll figure it out later. It's a long word. It's too early in the day for me, and I haven't had enough caffeine yet. Although you're probably like done for the day, pretty much, right? At here at 12:15.
You just finished the fourth cup of coffee today.
All right, so let us dive right in. So, you're the host of the Mark Arum Show, which airs Monday through Friday on WSB Radio here in Atlanta from 9 a.m. to noon. Did I get all that right?
Correct. Yeah,
right.
Absolutely.
All right. My crack research department is earning its money today. Thank you, Kim. You did a good job. Okay, so tell us a little bit about what the Mark Arum Show is about, and I love the show. I got it on in the background all the time. So talk to me about what makes, in your mind, what makes the show different from, any other talk show that people might have on the radio playing at any given time.
So that's a great question. The show is a conduit between the Atlanta's morning news program with Chris Chandler and Eric Erickson, noon to 3. So I'm in between these two. So I transition the audience from 100% news to 100% opinion. So it's my job to take the stories you heard on Atlanta's morning news, go in depth with them, especially if they're big local stories or big international stories. Give my opinion for sure, but make sure you are caught up to date on the stories. And then we'll transition to Eric Erickson, where he will go in depth, a little more opinionated on the things we were talking about.
Just a little bit more.
A little bit.
Just a little bit more.
Yeah.
And you've got some cohorts that are on the show with you, right?
That's right. My executive producer, Deborah Green, who is basically the boss of the show, indispensable, can't live without her. And I've got my longtime engineer, Andrew Longoria, a.k.a. Longoria, and screening the calls is our buddy Purnell, Sweet Pea Purnell, as I call
him. Okay. And let's see, how long have you been doing the show now? Because and you guys, let's see. Well, I'll let you answer that question. Then I've got another comment.
Okay. So the 9 a.m. to noon show has been a little over a year, almost a year and a half. Prior to that, I was afternoon drive 4 to 7. Prior to that, I was 6 to 8 p.m. Prior to that, I was 7 to 9 p.m. Prior to that, I was 10 to midnight. And before 10 to midnight, I did a weekend show starting back in 2001. So there's been some form of the Mark Arum Show since 2001 on WSB Radio.
It was a little, and I will say it was a little bit of adjustment going for me going from Mark in the afternoon to the morning. I had to move some client meetings. So I didn't have calls in the mornings. I had to switch stuff to the afternoon. My meal schedule shifted so I could. I just want you to know that there was some turmoil for me when you switched to the morning.
I think I had more turmoil.
Well, you may have had a little bit more.
I had 2 years of not having an alarm clock to having to get up at 4:30 in the morning after getting up at 3 a.m. for 20 years. So I understand your situation, but I think it impacted me more than you.
I'm just saying there's some listener issues that,
Oh, yeah.
I hope I get a little bit of sympathy there for for that. And I don't know, there's something about your show. I always feel like it's a little more, you're not talking at me, you're talking to me. It's a good conversation, and you get a little more in depth than Chris Chandler or some of the other folks can get in the morning show when they're kind of shorter segments. And I think, I don't know, I like that. You can talk to folks for 5 or 10 minutes, and even back after the break and talk to them a little bit more. And
there's a lot of freedom and a lot of flexibility in that regard. Where even an afternoon drive, the longest segment I had was 6 minutes. That was it. Yeah. But here I can, if I want, I can go 15 minutes if I think it's that important, or continue to the next break. So especially with the crazy news cycle we're in now, where it seems like every day we just have a mind-blowing story, to have that freedom and flexibility to really go deep onto a story.
Yeah, there is. I don't know. It seems like every other day. I mean, sometimes I'll wake up and look at the news, look at somebody's texting me at, I'll get a text from a producer at 6 o'clock in the morning going, okay, this just happened. I'm like, okay,
Yeah,
whatever and you're the same way. Whatever you'd planned for the day, it's like, okay, never mind.
exactly.
We're just gonna push that back a day or two and deal with this, CrowdStrike crash, or Delta meltdown, or airport issue, whatever cyber tech thing that's crashing on everything. So yeah, it makes it a little bit crazy. So if someone wants to be a part of the magic, kind of what's your planning cycle? How far ahead are you thinking for the show?
Well, it depends. Deborah does a great job of booking guests in advance, whether it's a politician or an actor or a celebrity chef or whatever. So there's a lot of pre-planning for that. The actual show planning starts right after I get off the air. So I'll go home, have lunch, walk the dogs, and then I'm flipping through cable news, and seeing what's being covered, and watching the evening news programs, and listening to WSB Radio news updates. And then Deborah will send me a list of stories every evening around 6:30 that I peruse. But a bulk of the prep happens when I get up in the morning, because a lot can happen between 7 p.m. and 7 a.m. And I'll listen to Atlanta's Morning News with Chris Chandler, great show prep for me. And then Deborah will send me more stories, and then we start booking guests depending on what happened overnight, whether it's a CBS, ABC guest, Bloomberg News, CNN audio. Most of the prep happens between 5 a.m. and 9 a.m.
So a good rule of thumb is probably within 12 hours of the show is kind of looking at what's happening in the news and what's happening in the world, and say, okay, I've got somebody who would be good for Mark's show. I should call or email Mark or Deborah, and I find that Deborah's usually pretty quick to respond if I've got somebody, and she will very often reach out at the night before and say, hey, what about this for tomorrow? What do you got for that for tomorrow? So
well, we're a 24/7 operation, so feel free to reach out. There's no specific time.
Yeah, I know. Well, there are times when I try to be respectful and say, okay, I'm not going to text this reporter at 11:30 at night, but then I think, okay, this is breaking, this is happening tomorrow morning. I probably should do that. So
Mitch, you have texting privileges 24/7 with me. Absolutely, don't hesitate.
I won't give out your cell phone to the world. That would not be a good thing. But I do. I think I do have Deborah's cell also, but she's good about responding on cell or email too.
Absolutely.
So would you suggest that folks reach out to Deborah or reach out to you, or does it matter?
Both. I mean, okay. Usually the best way is, email both of us. So we're both on the same page. We both get alerted. And, Deborah tells me what's up, and then we decide, what direction to go. But yeah, just email both of us for sure.
Okay. All right, cool. Are there, and I recognize that, a lot of the show is driven by what's happening today, but are there topics that you're looking at that you're thinking, okay, this is happening next week. The Olympics are happening in 2 weeks. Are there kind of things that are on your radar? You think, I really want to be covering this, and with the caveat that if other crap happens, then those things can be pushed back, right?
There are for sure. But what I like is if like, especially you're great about this, reaching out to me about a story that is under the radar, or that I might not know about or run into in my daily show prep. So things that I love getting pitches on, stories that I didn't even know was a thing, because that way I can learn along with the audience, like, oh, did you know this is actually happening?
Right.
So those are I like to be enlightened. and then in turn enlighten the audience. So I love those kinds of stories.
Yeah, and so much of what we do on the PR side is that, think of clients and stories and issues that are under the radar that shouldn't be under the radar. So we try to make them above the radar. Or
exactly. But also too, when it comes to, I mean, take this news cycle out of it because it's just been absolutely bonkers. But when we have a story about the Supreme Court or the Constitution or the Middle East, any time I can get someone that really knows their stuff on that, because I like to say I know a little bit about a lot of things. I can have a conversation about a lot of things, but my depth is limited in certain topics. And if I get an expert on U.S. history or Mideast history or constitutional law, that really helps tell the story better to the listener.
Yeah, and I always tell other PR folks, think ahead, look at what's happening, and think about, not just what's going to happen today or tomorrow, but what's going to happen 2 weeks from now. What kind of is there, like in June, the Supreme Court always comes out with all their decisions, right?
Yeah.
So in April, we're looking at our experts and thinking, okay, what are the cases that are going to come down? Who's going to talk about it? And you get all that figured out, and you don't know which case is going to come down on any given day, but you know that sometime this month there's going to be a decision on presidential immunity. So who's going to talk about that? So you get your folks ready, and then unfortunately, as happened this year, the day it came down, my professor was somewhere in Canada without internet service. That's the way it always happens, right? He's like, okay,
yeah.
But then you got your number two guys. Okay, we can go to this guy instead of this guy. I shouldn't call him my number two guy. He's going to be listening going, hey, man, I thought that was the number one guy. I'm number two? Who's number one?
Number one in our hearts.
Number one. The one who responds to my call that says, hey, can you do this interview? That's my number one guy.
Yeah, absolutely. Accessibility is key.
Oh, yeah. I have so many times when I get a call from a reporter who says, I need somebody in the next 20 minutes.
Yeah.
Especially radio. We're radio more than TV even.
Yeah. Guilty as charged.
Yeah, it's that, Chris Chandler is the guy going, hey, I need some, this just happened. I need somebody. Hey, how about now? How's now?
Yeah.
Is now good? We love Chris Chandler. Chris is awesome.
Oh yeah.
Okay. So let's see. So you got the, so we've talked about the crew, talked about the show. Let's see. And do you guys do a kind of a podcast or FaceTime Live or anything on TikTok or anything else like that to go along with the show?
So the show is now broadcast live streaming, video streaming on our website, on the station YouTube page, and on my Twitter account. So it's live. You can watch the show. You can see what's going on behind the scenes. After the show every day, after we get off the air, Longoria will post the podcast version of the show. So it's a condensed version. You don't have to listen to commercials or the traffic updates or the weather or the news. So it's just what we talk about on the air.
Gotcha.
And that's available everywhere you get podcasts.
Okay. Cool. Yeah. So I kind of started doing this thing as a video podcast, and then a friend of mine said, you should do audio too. So yeah, now it's audio also. Same kind of thing. Anywhere you listen to podcasts, right? You can find that. And I always tell folks, click the subscribe button, click the like button. And at some point, 20 years from now, I may actually make money on this. I don't know. Who knows? The YouTube stats are like, you have to have this many hours of viewing, and this many people have to watch it. And I'm like this far into that. I have to go this far to actually do that. But perseverance, right? Keep going. All right. So this next question, this is the hardest question I always ask folks on these things. So, what is the coolest thing about Mark Arum that people might not know about?
I'm not a cool person, A.
It could be a hobby, something you collect, a certain talent.
I'm a baseball card collector, but that's not cool. That's very nerdy. I guess my musical interests are kind of cool.
Right.
That again, nothing about me is cool. I'm the biggest nerd there is.
So the cards. So do you have a
Yeah.
genre, a certain area that you collect? Is it a certain sport or?
I collect baseball cards,
Okay.
and I was a collector as a kid, and then went to college, grew up, forgot about it, and then I was at WSB probably in the early 2000s, and I remember being a kid and not being able to afford a pack of baseball cards, and I was like, I'm an adult now. I can buy things that I wanted as a child, and I went back into collecting cards. So it's the bane of my wife's existence because I have way too many of them, and but it's what the fun outlet, kind of my side hustle, selling cards on the internet, and yeah, it's a fun hobby.
So I collected baseball cards when I was a kid too. Grew up in New York, and collected mostly Mets cards and more than anything else. But we used to play this game where you'd flip the cards.
Oh yeah,
you ever play that game? You gotta flip it like close.
Yeah.
Whoever gets closest to the wall gets all the cards.
Yeah, very fun, but it destroyed the cards. All the cards that I grew up with are in horrible condition because we would flip them against the wall all the time.
Right.
Yeah.
But there's some character to that, right?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, there's history and there's life experience behind the fact that you didn't just keep the cards in the plastic thing. Okay, so do you have a most valuable card that you're and
probably
if you don't want people robbing your house, you don't have to tell me.
Yeah, no, it's in the safety deposit box.
Okay, good.
I've got a Sandy Koufax rookie that's pretty spectacular. I've got every one of Koufax's cards. He was my dad's favorite growing up, so I collected them. That's probably Sandy Koufax rookie card is probably up there.
Okay, so just out of curiosity, what if you were to try and sell that? What's the value of that card? Is there a value to it?
Probably $15,000, maybe. Not that I'm, hopefully, knock on wood, I'll never have to sell it.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's probably in that range. I've got a couple of cards in that range.
Sometimes we collect things not for the resale value, but for the joy of it. I mean, I
nostalgia.
Yeah. I collected comic books for years and years, and I told my mother, I was like, I'm never going to make money on these. So
yeah,
I just have them as wall decoration behind me now.
Yeah, it's passion. You do it for the hobby, for the joy of collecting.
Yeah, and it's the memories of I remember when I was a kid throwing the cards against the wall and winning all the time or losing all the time, right? And there was like the getting the closest, and then there was the other game where it was like a heads or tails kind of thing.
Yeah,
that
absolutely.
you would if you got heads you had to call it or that kind of
thing.
Yeah. All right, so this next part is a kind of a little bit of a lightning round, so you don't have to do incredibly long answers. But
all right,
so we'll call this the Chris Chandler version of the show. Really short answers. So, what is the last book you've read or the last podcast you've listened to? And the podcast cannot be your own show. How about that?
Wow. I'm debating which question I want to answer.
You can answer both if you want.
The last book I read was John Pruitt's book. That was probably a month or two ago. I'm not really a podcast guy. I don't listen to any other talk shows. Oh, you know what? I listen to a fantasy baseball podcast.
Okay.
Yeah. That's I don't like listening to other talk radio shows or podcasts because I once interviewed the legendary voice of the Dodgers, Vin Scully, back when the Braves were on WSB Radio. And I asked him, hold on, they just started popping Erickson in here. Hey, can you turn off the station, buddy?
I got to do Erickson. I got to do Erickson at some point.
So anyway, back when the Braves were on WSB, I interviewed Vin Scully, and I asked him if he enjoyed listening to Skip, Don, Joe, and Pete, who were the Braves broadcasters at the time. And Vin Scully said to me, he doesn't listen to any other broadcasters because he doesn't want it to water his wine, meaning whether subconsciously or consciously pick up things from other broadcasters. So I've taken that to heart. I mean, Vin Scully said it. So I really don't listen to any other talk shows.
That's good. You don't want to, you don't want to unconsciously think, hey, I like what this guy's doing, or Because all of a sudden it's the Mark Arum Show that sounds like Eric Erickson, right?
Yeah, exactly. So I don't listen to any other. I mean, we have great talent on WSB Radio, but I generally just don't listen to any other talk shows.
Yeah. Well, and I think the tone and humor of your show is kind of unique, which is kind of honestly what I like about it. Okay, favorite local restaurant.
You got to pick a genre, man. I got too many. Give me a cuisine.
Favorite local restaurant within a mile of your house. How about that?
Oh, I just moved. I'm going to give you some answers.
All right. All right.
All right. Fair. If I want Italian, I go to LaGrotta in Buckhead, which is phenomenal. If I want Japanese, I go to Nakado on Cheshire Bridge. Probably one of the best meals I've had in my life was at Atlas in Buckhead. Mexican, I like Nuevo Laredo. I mean, I could talk 3 hours.
You're hitting all the good ones.
Yeah.
Okay. That's a good repertoire there. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Favorite guilty pleasure when you're not working on the radio. What do you like to do? What's a guilty pleasure? Real Housewives of Atlanta?
I have 2 television shows that are my guilty pleasure, and I've watched every season multiple times, and they were both introduced to me by my wife. Guilty pleasure number 1, Downton Abbey, and guilty pleasure number 2, Gilmore Girls. Those are 2 of my guilty pleasures.
That's diverse. That's good. All right.
Yeah.
What's a favorite local getaway?
My favorite tourist attraction in the entire state of Georgia is the Wild Animal Safari down near Columbus.
Yeah.
There are animals there you won't see anywhere in the world. It's phenomenal. I love that place.
That is, we took my kids there when they were little, and
they have ligers.
They like the giraffes sticking their head into the. We were smart enough not to drive our own car through there.
Oh yeah,
the guy in front of us drove his own car there, and I think he lost a mirror.
Yeah,
and the whole car slobbered up. That is good. That's right near Callaway Gardens, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. That's a great place. Everybody wants to go there. I go, tell them Mark sent you. All right, and they'll give you no discount. But anyway, but tell them Mark sent you anyway.
Yeah.
They'll be wondering, who is this Mark guy, and why are all these people saying this?
Oh, right. I talk about them on the radio a lot. They are definitely aware of my infatuation of their Wild Animal Safari.
Well, they need to have you down for like a live live from the bus or something as it's
I agree.
As it's going through. That would be fun. All right, favorite non-work hobby?
Playing poker.
Okay.
Yeah. I've played some World Series of Poker events. I had some success. COVID kind of interrupted my poker playing, but I enjoy playing poker for sure.
Is that a side business? If the radio thing doesn't work out, you can make your living playing poker?
I'm not going to lie. I did use that in contract negotiations about 15 years ago. And I said, I could make the same amount of money I'm making now playing poker. So, don't strong arm me here.
Yeah, I don't know if that's a selling point in journalism negotiations.
It worked.
I've heard plenty of people say, you don't believe what I started with and started making in this business.
Yeah.
All right. Anything else about the show that we haven't talked about, Mark? Anything else that you want to kind of remind people? 9 to noon, Monday through Friday podcast.
Yeah.
Listen to it.
And just it's a different show than the afternoon drive show. Obviously you listened. When I did afternoon drive, it was the end of the day. Let's have fun. I want to get you home in a good mood. But this legendary, time slot, 9 to noon on WSB Radio, that's a legacy time slot, and there come responsibilities there. And our program director, Ken Charles, has been guiding me to change the show from its former form into what it is now. And I get off the air and I'm proud of what we do every day. We cover the big local stories. We cover politics. We cover international stuff. We still have fun. But we put out 3 hours of informative, entertaining radio. And It's an honor to do it in this time slot and in this market on this legendary station.
Awesome. That's great. That's great. Ooh. I hear music in the background. I'm not sure if that's mine or yours.
Not me.
Not me. Maybe I hit something accidentally. All right. We have been talking with Mark Arum, host of the whatever that word is named Mark Arum. I'm gonna figure that out. It's gonna be like a graphic on the bottom.
Yeah.
And I'm gonna be like, oh yeah, that's the word I'm looking for. It's the Mark Arum Show. Anyway.
Yeah.
Thank you, Mark. I appreciate your time. And as always, you can find Mark's show on WSB Radio, 750 AM, and online at WSBradio.com, and on Twitter. Let's see, what's your Twitter handle, Mark?
At Mark Arum.
Okay. And Facebook, I'll be Mark Arum Show.
Yeah.
All
everywhere.
Right. And I know there's a podcast page on the WSB Radio site, so you can find it there, and everywhere you find your podcast. So at Apple Podcasts and Spotify and
exactly,
and all of that kind of thing. Google Mark Arum. It's one of those names. It's you're not going to get like 50 Mark Arum shows popping up around the country, right?
I'm the only Mark Arum in the world.
Cool. See, so, I Google Leff and Associates, and I get like law firms and real estate firms. People. I get emails all the time going, "Hey, can you help me with a legal matter?" I'm like, "No, I cannot." But if you have a PR problem with your legal matter, then
yeah,
I'm the guy to call. If the lawyer screws you up, then call Mitch, Leff and Associates, the PR side of it, and we'll try and make you look a little better.
A good hot lead.
That's right. I had a really crazy crisis communications thing years ago, and it was one of those where I told the client, I said, "You're in trouble. I can't get you out of trouble, but I can maybe make you look less bad than you're looking now." And they said, "Okay, we'll take it."
That's a win.
Yeah. It's like, I'm not going to make you look good. You're not going to look good here. There's no way. You're not going to look
bad.
Good. I'm going to make you look less bad. Well, we'll do our best. All right. And folks, as always, you can find our library of podcasts at 4 Questions Journalist Spotlight. Just Google that, and it'll pop up across YouTube and everywhere you get your podcast. And if you want to click subscribe and do that now, and do that several times. Tell your friends to do that, and do that on Mark's podcast. Also, click subscribe and and then we'll both be millionaires, and we can retire at age 60, and we'll be in good shape. And if you want to find our database of Atlanta media, go to leffsatlantamedia.com and sign up now, and you get the database, and you get our Mitch's Media Musings newsletter that comes out every month. So there's my spiel. Mark, thank you so much. I appreciate it.
My pleasure, Mitch. Thanks for having me, buddy.
All right. Talk to you soon.